Good morning, it is Phoenix Amore. So, I put something on Facebook, but I know I need to do this on YouTube too because not everybody gets on Facebook. Alright, let me explain something to folks about, by the way, today when I did the daily draw, I just want to kind of give people an idea of something. I pulled the Ace of Wands today, which I love seeing because when I talked about my lyrics and spark turned to flame and all that, this is actually what I was referencing. Okay, but if you look on the card, you also see that triangle, which represents Trinity. That's how I try to tell people when they get freaked out. Oh my God, somebody uses tarot and all that. I'm like, chill. It all depends on how somebody used the tool. Some people beat people over the head with the Bible. Y'all know how that goes. Now let's talk about this Pluto thing, because some people were so caught up in the whole planetary stuff, right, that I was picking up in regards to Pluto. And I was like, that's one side of it. But I also talked about the biblical aspect to Pluto being Hades, underworld. If you saw some of my lyrics when I talked about you want me to be Persephone, understand that is basically that dark side trying to pull somebody, right, to them. And so when I say you want me to be, and I said you can't handle me, that's spiritual warfare. So some people, when they're listening to the lyrics, they started listening to them with hip-hop ears, right? When I said I'm the biggest news stating facts, call me Reuters, got a rack like Hooters, a mind like a razor sharp, right? Those are the lyrics. So somebody else in a competitive mindset would hear that and say, oh, she thinks she all that, she the biggest news. Basically, news is information that was not known before. So that's again me, because I know my own lyrics referencing being prophetic, prophetess, right? Have a mind like a razor, discernment. If you did not understand all that stuff, razor slicing through the BS, all those lyrics, discernment. That's what I'm saying to folks. So I said I'm a shit kind of chick. All these references to razors, right? People think, oh, she got a razor in her mouth, she hood. No, discernment. That's what I was speaking of. So when you talk about Pluto squaring somebody's chart, Pluto also is in transit. So when you hear the word transit, it's moving. So the planets are always shifting certain degrees, however you want to say it, for those that didn't understand that. So when Pluto is moving over your natal chart, now your natal chart is where the planets are aligned when you were born. Okay, the transits, that's why I said it's like a bus, right? And some people explain it the same way, running you over and backing up over you. So you feel like you're constantly in this little battle. Power struggles is what you attract. But some people don't understand. The sun being identity. Understand one thing. Pluto representing underworld. For those that are very spiritually gifted, you're going to start seeing some stuff. Now, for me, you have to understand when God asked me, are you sure you want to be able to see some of this stuff? And I said, yes. So again, that's not something that God forced up on me. That's the difference there. He asked me specifically, drink this, you're going to be able to see some stuff. Now, drink this, that was not some liquor or some syrup and all that kind of stuff. I think people finally understand. I'm like, stop listening to my lyrics in your mindset. This is why you have to understand the whole thing about lyrics being sacred. Because if you try to interpret somebody else's lyrics, you're going to end up looking silly. So all this stuff when Pluto hit my sun, when I talk about square, right? Square is a 90-degree angle. It's very rough. So when you saw some of my lyrics when I talked about congruent and smoothing the angles out and all that, that's that spiritual warfare that I was going through, because again, Pluto represented underworld, Hades. If you go to the Bible, you see it right there. So a square hitting somebody's sun identity is trying to split you. Okay, that is why I said some people go for real crazy during those transits because they can't handle that pressure. Now, when it hit me and I started having more powerful dreams, it took a little bit for me to get some of that was really spiritual warfare. But when I really got it is when little stuff started breaking through. I said, oh, that's why God asked me if I wanted to do this for him. Now I get it. And so all these things that I'm able to show you guys with the bruises and all that, that's the difference there between somebody's dabbling that's attracted it versus God saying, hey, will you go through this for me? You're going to see some stuff. That's where I talked about the intervention and all that. That's why I say to some of the more arrogant people in their gifts, be cautious, because you don't want to steer people in a crazy direction, trying to front like you know. So now that I mentioned that, some people would have never been able to apply that on a more biblical, Quran, whatever stance, God stance, however you want to say it. Think of it like Hades squaring you. So it's basically, in essence, dark side of things putting hurdles in your way, and you having to jump over, roll over, whatever you got to do to get through those. That's what that's about. So when I talk about, right, the heat and all that kind of stuff, that's what I was going through when I'm the side. Y'all saw it already. So some of these people, they're weird because they read the lyrics and like, oh, we're supposed to take her through the lessons. Who was that wacky? That's what I had already been through. So I'm explaining to people, this is what happened. This is what I was seeing, right? So all these silly mofos, that's why I was like, some people are just arrogant. It's ridiculous. That's what I was explaining to people. I've already been there. So understand something when I have somebody coming at me like, I need to prove. I don't need to prove anything. I will say this much as I learned about astrology, when God pulled me away from it, he said, I'm going to teach you how to apply that. You can have all the knowledge in the world. Unless you know how to apply it, it means nothing. So that's what God said. Now I'm going to give you that word. So now that stuff that you learn, think about, again, the whole Moses thing. You learn these things, but now I need to teach you how to apply those in my manner. Now God's manner would be Holy Trinity. So understand certain things, subtle, right? If you remember, the when I said the balloon thing and that balloon hitting the electricity, the lines, and I said I cut this balloon. So the subtle things, boom, lights go out, and it gets subtle until people started stuff. And then I said the veil broke. So now you have all this stuff that's broken through, and people did not get it. When I'm like, I don't have to help you. Those in the know who owes or who doesn't know. So if you see now that I've broken it down so clearly for some people, you can see why some of them would try to bind another person who has the ability to see and fight on the spiritual plane, because they can't. If somebody who's been conjuring up stuff and they know something's coming for them, you'll have those that try to latch on and bind and say, this person, I know they have these skill sets, so I want to bind to them or whatever. No, that's not how God operates when it's somebody who's reached, quote unquote, archangelic, prophetic, messenger level, whatever you want to call it. But there's that humility. That's what I tell people. He will give you more and more and more if you are humble. Most people cannot stay humble, and that's just the reality of it. So with all that being said, I hope that explains more about that Pluto stuff, because it's powerful. And for me to have the 3 Aries planets the way that I do and the way that I fall, I knew God was for real. Like, you are going to really be prepped. The way that I was prepped already was my birth. When I talk about, understand something, the 3 Aries planets in the 8th house of Pluto, that's already in my chart. So you have to understand, when Pluto hit and started squaring those, it was already in, guess what, that 8th house. So when I talk about being reborn and all that, that's what I was speaking of. That's why I said I was already ordained to have certain gifts. So when these planets, think of them like trigger points, right? It's almost like catalytic events that start to happen. This is supposed to happen, now you're ready for that. And then you go through this a little bit, now you're ready for this. That's why it is literally like a boot camp. Because if you know, when they start you in boot camp a little bit at a time, and then suddenly you're like, whoa, this is some heavy stuff. It's very, very much so the same concept. But the transits, they're like, boom, and it hits your chart. So when it hit my chart in the 8th house, spiritual warrior, hidden warrior was triggered, because God knew some stuff is going to pop off. If you don't understand that, and if you want to get in on it like it was fun marketing and all that, that's why I said, oh, it's fun, you think it's fun, oh, okay, let me move out the way. That's what I was talking about. Those trigger points in my chart, when I talked about being a spiritual warrior, that's really who I am. So hope that explains that to people. You guys make sure to have a very, very blessed and lovely day. Take care.